Hi friends, it's Becky, and I have some beads and a project to share with you from the Potomac Beads Stormy Shores bead box. This was the May treasure box from Potomac Beads. It's a monthly bead box where you get a bunch of different beads. A lot of times you get some 2-hole beads, some seed beads, and other check glass beads. And then you can just make whatever you would like from that. They also have a kit subscription, and the bracelet that I'm wearing came in the kit subscription. I finished my project. I love it, and I'm going to be wearing that today while I do that. I'll put a link in the description to Potomac Beads if you want to check them out. I'll also put a link to this tutorial. It's on the Potomac Beads YouTube channel, so you can watch that there. But for this tutorial, we're going to be making another bracelet, and I'm going to be using these discduo beads that came in the box. I will put a link to my unboxing if you'd like to see what else came in the box. Some of these Stormduo beads, which are these tilde shape beads, they have a sort of a wave shape to them. And then I've got some 11-0 seed beads. They're the opaque rainbow 11-0s that came in the box. And these light aqua AB bicones. These are 4mm bicones. I'm going to be adding a clasp. This is just a lobster clasp, some jump rings, and I'm going to be stringing these on some beading wire. I have some 0.019 beading wire here. It's a 49 strand wire, and I like this dark blue color. I think it'll look great with the rest of these beads. So I've got these. I've gone ahead and cut off 2 different lengths, or 2 different strands, because the way that we're going to be constructing this, there's going to be about 4 passes through this. And so I wanted each of these strands is enough to go around my wrist twice, plus about this much extra for crimping. Because I'm using beading wire, I will be doing some crimping. So I've got some 2x2 crimps here. And the tools that I'm going to be using are some chain nose pliers, flush cutters, and my favorite way of crimping, I've got my magical crimpers, but any crimping style that works for you, you can use to make this project. I've also got a little bead stopper that's going to be part of the tools that I use for this. And I think that's all of the materials. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm just going to take my 2 wires and I'm going to give myself a couple of inches on the end and put my bead stopper right here on the end of this. I don't want them to be too far apart because I do want my 2-hole beads to not be too far apart. I'm going to be alternating between my, hold on, that's too bright. There we go. I'm going to be alternating between my Stormduos and then either the round duos or an 11-0 between them. So I'm going to start with one of my Stormduos, and I'm just going to mention here, I already went through all of these 2-hole beads on my mat and made sure that both holes were clear. Sometimes you'll get a 2-hole bead that like one of the holes is just fine, but the other hole is blocked for some reason. And whether you clear it out with a bead reamer or not, sometimes it just isn't going to be large enough for stuff to go through. So double check before you get started with the 2-hole beads. That way you won't get halfway through your project and realize that you'll have to unstring the whole thing because you've got a bead that doesn't have a clear hole on the other side. So I'm going to just start with my Stormduos, and it doesn't matter for this first one which holes you go through, because you can always flip it over to the other side to make it match up correctly. I'm going to be laying out this way and talking about a top and a bottom side to this as I work from left to right, adding these on. So I've got my Stormduo here, and I wanted to have, you've got sort of a concave curve part on this side, and then a convex curve. So one that curves in and then one that curves out. I want the one that curves out to be pointing towards me down at the bottom. And so with this top wire, I'm going to string on one of my disc duos right there. And then on my bottom wire, the one that's closest to me, I'm going to string on one of my 11-ohs. All right. Now the next Stormduo, I'm going to want to pay attention to which holes I go into with it, because I would like the top strand to go into one of the concave sides, the in curve. Focus, friends. There we go, the in curve on that for the top strand. And the bottom strand should be this outer curve side. So let me get that one. I can scooch it up next to it. What I want is for the out curve side to sort of bump up next to, just like this, that other one, just with that 11-oh in between it. And then we're going to do the opposite for the next one. So on this next one, on the top one, the top level, I'll just grab an 11-oh and string that on. And on my bottom one, I'll pick up a disc duo. And now I want my next Stormduo to kind of, do you see how it kind of hugs that disc duo? It kind of embraces it. I want this to do the same thing around this one. So it's got that inner curve side next to the disc duo. So that strand is where I'm going to go in on my next Stormduo, on that inner curve side. And then I'll grab my top one, and go through that outer curve side. Like that. And I'm going to repeat this until it is almost long enough to fit around the wrist that I'm making this for, where on the side that has the in curve, I'm going to be stringing on a disc duo, and on the side that has the out curve, I'll be putting on an 11-oh, and then stringing on a Stormduo that will make sure that the in curve side is facing towards that disc duo. There we go. Between the top and bottom there. I'm just going to keep adding these until it gets to the length that I want. And I'm going to come back and join you after I do that. So I'm just going to keep going here. And you will have quite a bit of this wire left over at the end. I'll show you how to, first of all, attach the closure that we'll have at one end of the bracelet, and how to turn it around and start heading back down the other direction towards this first part. So I'm going to continue on with this, and I'm just going to add one more Stormduo before I leave, and then you guys get to step ahead to that completed part. If you are following along with me, go ahead and pause this video and come back once you've got it as long as you believe that it should be. And that'll be, you know, whatever length that it is going to fit around a wrist, plus about, I don't know, enough room for your clasp. So if you've got a big clasp, you might string a little bit shorter. If you've got a smaller clasp like I am, it might string a little bit longer. But that's going to be up to you how long you want to do that. So I'll be back after I finish repeating this and get it to the length that I want. Alright, so I have added all of these, and what you want to do is, you see how there's some of that wire visible there? You want to make sure you slide these all down before you measure it in its length to verify that it is long enough. You're going to want to make sure you also end on a Stormduo. So I'm just going to grab each of these wires individually and kind of slide these beads along. Top row and now bottom row, just to get them tightened up so that they are right next to each other, and so that when you actually measure your length, you're not measuring too much extra wire between these. All right, and I did actually measure it on myself, but let me show you where that's at. There we go. So there's a little bit of space here for a clasp between this Stormduo and that is exactly what I want on this. So what I'm going to do to get it turned around and head back the other way, because you could, and I could 100% just crimp these two wires together and make a loop and attach a clasp and just leave this like this. This would be a perfectly fine bracelet, and I would probably be really happy to wear it. But I do have this other hole, this second hole on these disc duos, so I wanted to go back down the line and add some bling along the sides of it with these bicones. So we're going to be going back down with both strands along each side of this bracelet. So to get that turned around, I'm going to do each of these wires individually. So I'm going to grab a small bead stopper actually for this one, because I don't want it to get too in the way of my crimping. And let's do this. Actually, no, wait. Yes, I don't want it to get in the way of my crimping, so I'm going to bead stopper this wire there. And then on this one, because it's lower, you know, it's a sort of lower elevation if you're to look at it this way, I'm going to put on 2 11/0 seed beads to get my crimp up to about the same level as this next one would be if I did just 1 11/0 seed bead. So 2 11/0s on this side where the last bead between the Stormduos was a 11. I'm going to do 2 11/0s. No, let's do 3. Let's do 3. I changed my mind. You were always allowed to change your mind. Okay. There we go. So 3 11/0s, and then I'm going to grab a crimp. And because I'm going to be using jump rings to attach my clasp, I'm just going to go back through and make a loop with this beading wire. And I'll attach my jump rings later. Let me grab. There we go. So let me grab my crimper. We'll zoom in just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing with this crimp. This is going to be a little bit out of the way. If you haven't seen a magical crimper, it only works on 0.018 or 0.019 wire, and it only works with 2x2 crimp tubes, but it is my favorite way of crimping. There's this little concavity inside of it, and you want to make sure that your crimp is centered in that before you squeeze it. And then when you do squeeze it, it's going to just push down the corners of that crimp just those outer edges to make a little pillow or ravioli shape. Then if you turn it at a 90-degree angle and give it another smush in the crimper, and then turn it again at another angle, and just keep going around at different angles. Make sure that you are centered each time you do in your crimp. Then that will smooth out those corners, and you'll be left with a nice little ball of crimp that has some smooth edges, and it is very secure and ready to go. And you don't have to add anything else to that. Have your little loop with your wire, and everything will be good to go. So now that's turned around my wire, it's going to go back down along here. Before I start doing anything with that, I'm going to use my crimp on the other side. And for this side, I'm going to pick up, instead of 3 11-ohs, just 2, maybe 1. Let me see where this ends up at. This one. Yeah, I think I need 2. And then an 11-oh. Because when we do that together, yeah, that's rocking. It's gonna fill in that space from that. So now I get my crimp. Then I get my wire back down through my crimp. I want to make sure my loops are about even, same size. There we go. And then again, I'm going to make sure that my crimp is centered in my crimper. Give it a good smoosh. I've got my little ravioli that I made. Right angle. Like I said at the beginning, you can use any crimping method that you are comfortable with. This just happens to be my favorite. Alright, and now I've got that one coming around that side, and this one coming around this side. So at this end, there is going to be a little bit of a difference because I need to just put a few beads between the crimp and this hole here. So let's see, that's going to be about 1, 2, maybe 3. Let's try it with 3. 1, 2, 3. This is the side that's next to the first round duo. It's closest to it, yep. That fills that space in very nicely on that side. And now let's do the other side over here. On this side, I'm going to be including a bicone. So I'm going to pick up 3 11-ohs, 1, 2, 3, the bicone, and then 1 more 11-oh. And let's see if that fills in that space the way I imagine it will. And it really does. That fills in that space, and that makes it so these loops are much closer to each other than they were before. Now for the rest of this, I'm going to just be picking up 1 11-oh, 1 bicone, and 1 11-oh, and going through the next round duo. And this will be for both sides that I do this. So that's one side, and I'm going to do the other side. And again, these are 4mm bicones. You could substitute any other 4mm bead. Maybe you'd like some pearls there instead. Maybe some fire polish beads. I like the little touch of bling that it adds, giving me a little bit of sparkle. So I'm going to continue all the way to the end, and I will meet you back here after I've done that so I can show you how to finish this up and complete the bracelet. All right, so I have added my 11/0s and my crystals all along the edges here. I have my 4 wires coming out of this end. This is the end that I started with. I've still got this guy over here on the end too. And you might notice that it doesn't like laying flat. It's a little bit bumpy wumpy, but that's totally okay because it loves to be in a curve and it will sit very nicely as a bracelet. So it's totally fine if this is a little bit it's a technical term, because again, it will sit very nicely as a bracelet once it's in a curve. So while it's sitting flat, we're just going to ignore its waviness and let it be its wavy self. And this is something that if you were to do this with beading thread and a needle, you wouldn't see this waviness. It's part of the wire. Gives it that sort of extra stability that you don't get with the beading thread. If you do decide to do this with beading thread, I would 100% recommend going through all of your thread paths more than once. Every single thread path more than once so that you can reinforce it. With beading wire, you don't have to reinforce. All right, so I'm going to end up wanting to bring 2 of these together on each side, and I also want to go ahead and mirror the bead arrangements that I've got over here. So I'm going to start with these 2 on this side. That's the side that's furthest away from one of these disc duos, and I'm just going to move this wire to the side so it's out of the way. Put them together. This is sort of loosening up, which is not what I want. That's why I need to get it clipped. There we go. Let's get that clipped with this bead stopper. It's the smaller bead stopper just so that it's out of the way and clipped and isn't going anywhere. And then this side, I'm going to start with an 11/0, a bicone, and 3 11/0s on the outer edge. So 11/0, bicone, and 1, 2, 3 11/0s. There we go. Whoop. And then this one that's in the center over here coming out of the Stormduo. On that one, I need 3 11/0s. So let's get 1, 2, 3 11/0s on here. 1. I'm holding it instead of tipping it down because I want the I don't want the wire to loosen up too much. All right. Now let's get a crimp on here. I am also going to be making a loop on this end with my wire. So I'm going to put this crimp on both ends of this wire, and then my longer end I'm going to bend back towards my work. So I'm going to bend that back. Make sure that it's coming out of the crimp and not through those seed beads. Not that it would fit through those seed beads. This wire would not fit twice through the 11-ohs. And now that I've got a loop right there, I'm going to crimp it exactly the same way that I did on the other side by making my ravioli and then going around it from different angles. Do a little smush, a little smush, a little smush until it is a nice smooth spicy meatball. There we go. And now I'm going to snip off my excess wire. I've got some excess wire coming up through here. So I'm going to take my flush cutters and get right up next to my crimp. Give that a snip. And the same on that side with my extra wire here. So I've got my little loop. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, but I need to make sure that I'm mirrored. And it's going to be 2 on the inner wire and 3 on the outer wire. And that's 11-ohs. 2 11-ohs on the inner wire, the one that's closer to the middle of the bracelet, and then 3 on the outer wire, the wire that's on the outer edge. 1, 2, 3. All right. Now that I've got those, I'm going to grab a crimp. You know, if you've got like a double loop, what is it called? Clasp or something, this would be a great place to connect it. But I'm going to just be using some jump rings to turn this double loop into a single loop and attach a clasp that way. Bring my loop down. There we go. And do some crimping. A little more crimping. There we go. You want to make sure that your crimp is centered each time you smush it. You want to open up your crimp before you turn it around. Okay, my extra wire. And my extra wire. All right, I am so happy with the way that this has worked out. It is very, very pretty. And now I've got some 6mm jump rings, and then I've got a few 4mm jump rings. I believe I'm going to grab the 4mm jump rings, and I'm going to connect them to each loop and to the larger jump ring. So I'm going to open this one up. I'm going to hold it steady with one. I'm just using this like a second set of pliers because it's got a nice flat area right here at the tip. And I'm using my chain nose pliers to swing this open so that I can connect one loop and the larger jump ring. And then close that up. And then I'm going to grab the second of the smaller jump rings, swing that open, connect this loop and that same larger jump ring. Go. Now let's do the same thing on the other side. Before I do that, I am going to attach this clasp. No, because I want it to go the other way. Okay, never mind. I'm going to leave this loop closed, and I'm going to use a jump ring to attach to that so that it's oriented the way I want it to be. All right, loop and larger jump ring. Doesn't need to be that much larger. It's just, you know, a little bit larger. It doesn't even need to be larger. You could do it with 3 jump rings like this that are the same size. Okay, turned that. Did I not open it wide enough? That is the question, or am I just holding it in the wrong place? Yep, I was holding it in the wrong place. All right, get that second one in there. In that same jump ring. All right. So now I've got that loop on that end, this loop on this end, and I'm going to attach my lobster clasp to this loop. And I think I want to dangle for the other side to make it easier to hold on to it when I'm putting it on and off, and also to be able to get to that loop a little bit easier. So I've got my lobster clasp on my jump ring, and I'm going to attach it to that same one that I've got everybody attached to here. And let me grab one of these bicones and a couple of seed beads and a head pin. Let's make a little loop. Alright, so I've got a little head pin on the seed bead, the bicone, and another seed bead. That's going to make myself a little dangle. Now I'm going to need some round nose pliers for this. I am sorry I didn't mention at the beginning. I just decided that I wanted a dangle. But I am going to use my round nose pliers by grasping just the top of this head pin and then rotating a little bit away from me so that it bends the wire back. I'm going to use my finger to push that over the top and then rotate my head pin or my pliers out of the way and keep going around. Now from this point, I'm going to make this into a wrapped loop by grabbing onto the wire with my pliers and pulling it around the neck of that head pin until it ends up next to my beads. And then I'm going to snip this off, this little extra piece of wire here. And tuck in this little edge. There's a little bit of wire that's poking out, so I'm just going to tuck it in with my pliers. Okay. And I'm going to attach this to the other side, and I'm going to just swing open this jump ring to attach it like this. And that should give me something to hang on to like that while I am putting this on. And that always makes it a little bit easier to attach a clasp. I love the sparkles. Honestly, that looks really great next to this other bracelet. Great stackers. It's a little bit bigger so I can fit it a little higher. Great to stack with. All right, let me lay this out so you can get another look at this. once more, check the description for links both to Potomac Beads website where you can find more info about the subscription, the unboxing video so you can see other beads that were in this box. There were some super cute fish cutout components that we're going to be making something with later, but this was one of the things that I wanted to share with you today. And until next time, happy beading.